this wasn't their first rodeo. Like they've done thousands. So I was just another walk in the park. I wasn't the new guy. And that meant a lot to me because when I'm leaving here, I'm going to North Dakota, Montana. I don't have a time, I can't break down 100 miles from there. There's no way to break down.
We're gonna do a seminar about 1:30 here and letting everybody know of how bad Sprinter vans are with their ride. The problem is you're getting a Mercedes and you're thinking you're getting a Mercedes ride, and actually you're getting a box truck ride. So we are gonna improve that ride with the VB air suspension, and we're gonna let them know how it works and how it does everything. These were actually made for cargo vans, you know, and then they converted it into a luxury ride, but you're not getting a luxury ride. And the other thing is, you know, our VB suspensions and all our suspensions, it protects your investment because you're going down the road beating these things around, you know, stuff's falling off the walls, ACs are breaking, I put microwaves back up because of it. It's a bad ride. I personally picked up one in California, had to drive it down to Texas and then back up to us. And me and a partner went and got it, and we were just going to do a cannonball run with it. We weren't going to take any stops. We were going to sleep in the back while one drives. Well, there was no sleeping in the back. I learned that my first trip. I was like, this is horrible. I actually were sleeping in a passenger seat instead. So, I mean, I get it. So I'm going to let Scott go ahead and talk, and then we'll let Brian talk, and then, you know, question and answers, all that good stuff. And then definitely let us come around and talk more personalized to you guys on how we could help you and get you set up and get you in. It's about a one-day setup. So in case you had any questions on that. Thank you.
We all know how they ride. They don't ride the greatest. The biggest problems that we deal with is putting all this stuff in there, weighs the back of that van down. You lose half your suspension just by it being built. Like Carl was saying, it actually raises it back up to the factory specs. Every one of these vehicles, Mercedes says between that axle and the frame rail has to be this amount of space in order for it to ride correctly. Pinion angles, drive shafts, these things, extremely expensive to replace. We don't want to have to deal with that. With the VB air suspension, we set every one of them to the specific units, whether it be a 3500 two-wheel drive, 3500 four-wheel drive, 2500, whatever the case is. They get set to a specific height and it stays there. You go over bumps, you hook a trailer up, whatever it is, it stays at that height. That's the biggest advantage to the VB suspensions. Now, like Carl was saying, kind of pulled it in here, if your vehicle is sitting a little off kilter, it will self-adjust. Now, it doesn't do leveling. You can't actually pinpoint every corner. There are other systems available for that. We do also install leveling systems if people are interested in that. Lower jacks down, you can raise your whole unit up on those if this is something that we're interested in doing. As far as all the different units, yes, Transit, ProMasters. I don't know if anybody has any other vehicles. We do trucks. That's kind of what we're kind of started out for. We build big hauler trucks for the really big RVs. We getting into Jeeps. We're doing Broncos. We do about everything. So it's not just Sprinters. As far as the Sprinters and the vans, I've been doing this for 9 years going on. And we average probably 4 to 5 a week. So yeah, those are big numbers. We've seen about every configuration. We work directly with Midwest for a great many years, doing all of their installs. We do several other OEM upfitters, your Coachmans. We've done quite a few for Airstream. Airstream kind of doing their own thing now. So we have the knowledge, we have the experience. There's not a whole lot underneath these things that I haven't seen that we haven't been able to figure out a workaround. As far as...
Why does Midwest not predict? Just go ahead and put them on. Yeah.
Well, actually, they just started. They set up their own line. That's kind of why we're having a little bit of separation, because not every unit has to have it. And a lot of people, you start talking about what it costs for these suspensions, it gets a lot of people scared.
It would have been easier digested by me if it had been on there already.
Yeah.
Now having to come out of pocket with, you know.
I think
more
it's an
money.
option with Midwest if you get, your build. So
If
you
you-
either get
if you
you
order
get it
it.
and you
Yeah.
order it, then you
Yeah.
That's how we were involved with them. We were doing the ones that were optioned in. So it's still an option with them. So people, 100,000 of them didn't get the option. So
Right,
that's where
like
we.
with mine.
Yeah.
I would want y'all
That's
to
where we
mine
set
right
in, yeah.
there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Question is, the shocks are removed completely, right? The springs, I mean?
Yes, the leaf springs are removed.
Great
If it fails, if the system fails, what happens, and, what's the chances of that?
Depending on the failure, a lot of people are concerned about airbags. Like I said, in the 9 years I've done this, I think I've seen a total of 3 airbags actually go. The only thing that's going to affect your airbag is something getting in there. As far as like your normal wear and tear,
Thrown up?
yeah, which I mean, we're talking about pretty catastrophic events. Other than that, I mean, there is, just like with everything else, there does arise electrical issues. Electrical issues, if it were to happen to where the compressor no longer runs, we install emergency fills, so where you can still fill up your airbags, you still can drive it. Even if you do have a catastrophic airbag failure, it just sits on the bump stops. You can still move your unit, you don't have to get it towed. It's not gonna be comfortable, you do not wanna go at high speeds, but you can kind of limp it, get it off the road, get it to a service station. And the nice thing about an air suspension is 99% of all truck shops can work on them, because they've been putting air suspensions on 18-wheelers, dump trucks, anything large enough to accept it.
What's the guarantee on that?
3-year, 36,000.
3-year, 36,000 mile warranty. Certain parts do have a lifetime warranty because the hard metal components, they're just not gonna fail.
That's why they have lifetime warranty.
Yeah. The parts that never have to be replaced, they got a lifetime warranty.
Where would you go back for warranty?
Actually, VB on their website has a full list. There's installers and there's authorized service places all over the United States. We just get a lot of attention because, one, VB is right around the corner from us. They're here locally in Elkhart. And not to toot our own horn, but we are the #1 retailer installer in the United States. The only company that actually installs more than we do is Airstream, but they're doing like 18 a week. So they don't do aftermarket. And from what I've been experiencing with a lot of the other dealers is this is the biggest area for these as far as getting these installed, because the units are built here. You come back here, get your warranty work done, get this, that, or anything else done, we're right here.
Is there any kind of service schedule for those, or maintenance, like a building?
As far as maintenance goes, there's really nothing. The movable parts don't need to be greased. It's all rubber bushings. The only thing they recommend for maintenance is when you're cleaning up your coach, when you're doing a regular maintenance on your coach, just spray down your airbags with some rubber protectant to keep them from dry rotting. That's about it. If you notice you got bad dirt underneath there or something like that, soft soap, clean it up. I mean, it's not the maintenance, it's the cleanliness, it's keeping everything fresh. And obviously, I mean, with us doing installs, give it 1,000 miles, bring it back, we'll check it out for free. Make sure everything's still working the way it should.
1,000 miles from you.
So when you get home, just turn around, come on back. Any other questions?
Scott, so when you put mine in, you took the shocks out. You put some really big, heavy-duty shocks in there also.
Well, VB make.
Talk about the parts. I think people would be impressed with what you take off.
So the list that we take off the factory leaf springs, we take off the factory sway bar, we take off the factory shocks. Instead of the leaf springs, we have, it kind of looks like a leaf spring, but it's just a perch for the airbags. It replaces your leaf springs. It gets a new sway bar, a heavier duty sway bar that actually gets relocated to the front side of the axle. And then it has specially tuned shocks for the VB suspension. Because we're kind of getting that vehicle back to where it needs to ride, the limit for your airbags are your shocks. So your shocks can only go so far. So that airbag knows where those shocks are, so you don't end up blowing airbags. Unfortunately, we have heard of a couple of people putting aftermarket shocks on thinking that might help, and it just hurts because it actually causes damage to the airbags, potentially blowing the airbags. As far as the factory that gets taken off and replaced, that's about it. And then there's also a compressor. We have ride sensors on either side, so it helps control your sway. The compressor, well, in this one right here, the compressor is right behind the rear axle, and it also has an air tank back there. Your air tank holds about 165 PSI of air. Most of the time, your bags only run about 65, 70. So as you're driving and you get that sway going on, you get little bumps in the road, all that air kind of helps keep things level. So it doesn't need to so much react, but it does have your ride sensors, and I believe it checks your ride, the computer actually checks the ride sensors something like 1,500 times a second. But it takes a second and a half for the actual system to react. So when you're going and you got these little sways, all this air is kind of shifting around between the air tank and the airbags, but actually your compressor isn't running. So your compressor stays a lot longer because the more that compressor runs, the faster it burns out. So we want to keep that thing from running while we're driving down the road. And then that's about it as far as the replacement. There's there's some relocation brackets that we have to put on there that wrap around your axle. And then we have ride sensor mounts that wrap up around your frame rails. That's about the extent of the parts. And then everything gets wired up underneath the driver's seat where all the chassis electronics are. And the only thing that you're actually gonna see in the driver's compartment is a remote. Now, the remote is a bit controversial because when you're driving, everything's automatic. You don't have to worry about a thing. Now, when you stop, you pull that emergency brake, it's like a switch between automatic and manual mode. From there, we can raise and lower the rear end of that unit. That's about the only thing the remote's for. Most of the time I tell people, put that remote in the back of your seat, don't even think about it, unless you actually need it. Now, if you need to dump your tank, something like that, you hit one button, the whole back of it drops down. As far as the actual airbags, you can't adjust that while driving.
Now, what we're talking, this is rear.
Yes, rear only. Correct. They actually do make a front kit, but it's not approved in the United States due to the Department of Transportation. We do offer options if we would like a little bit of a better ride in the front end. We haven't heard a lot of people complain about the front, but they do have aftermarket struts. Coney makes a pretty good product. Bilstein also makes a pretty good product. So there are availabilities for the front if we want to look at that. But most of what we concentrate is on the rear because, let's face it, that's where the problems are.
I think when I drove out of your driveway, I didn't hear any noise in the front either. I mean, to me, the important part is when you pull out of a driveway like a Walmart, you always we call it the three swings. Mm-hmm. Swing, 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 because that's when and you got to go slow and you look like an idiot. And this one, I intentionally tried to brake it because I thought it was close. So I kind of zipped around. Like, I kind of feel like I'm on a real Mercedes. Like, you know, it's handling.
And honestly, that's one of the, I think one of the finest selling points of this is it really makes it feel like you're in more control of your unit. Yeah. I'm sure you guys driving all over the country, you felt that with leaf springs. You kind of going around a big curve, entrance, exit ramps to the highway. You kind of get to that point where it's like, ooh, am I going to lose control of this thing? We have a one first-hand witness right here. With these, you still get that lumber, but it's controllable. I've taken customers for test drives, 40, 45 miles an hour, yellow line to yellow line. It's scary, but it handles it. I don't recommend that, but it can handle it. That's the whole point of this. You'll still get that sway, you'll still get that move, but you'll be able to control it. Obviously, that's the biggest thing. We don't want these things running off of the road.
I thought the other big thing was, as you guys know, my wife has a hearing loss. She I made her sit in the back, say, let's just see how it feels. And she said about 10 minutes ago, she said, I feel a bump. I started talking to her. I go, forget the bump, we're talking.
Yeah.
I can hear you before I can hear
Yeah,
even
you
my.
said it made it less noise.
Oh, there's no noise. I mean, even before I could even hear, sadly, I couldn't hear my grandson cry back there because it's so damn loud.
Yeah.
Or my daughter-in-law said I need to stop the feed. And I'm like, hey, we're talking, we're 15 feet apart, which is significant for our world, as you know. But that thing, that MJ dude on the channel, he was right. It is whisper quiet, that's fair to say.
Yeah. We've actually had a guy in the past, he set up we were trying to find it. He wrote a big long letter, and not just the sound, but also the road vibrations. He said he put all kinds of gauges and everything back there, and he said just the road vibration went down like 60%. So, I mean, people that are sitting back there, granted, they're not getting bounced around, but you really can't tell that you're sitting above an axle. I've ridden in the back of these things. Yeah. Yeah. Well, between the noise, the vibration, everything.
On the floor,
Yeah.
and then ride back there on a cushy bed. Rather,
I've seen so many people keep their dog bed right between the passengers, and they're like, the dog won't even go back there when we're driving.
so it actually makes it smoother up front as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that, I'll tell you, I don't know about everybody else, but I have permanent neck problems, disc problems. And I can feel when I'm just
Yeah.
having to bear down on that steering wheel. When you hit one of those bumps and everything in there goes.
Oh, yeah. We've heard a lot of issues. I mean, like James was saying, stuff falling off of the walls, everything rattling nonstop, and enough to drive anybody insane. I get one little squeak in my car, and I go absolutely insane.
And I accepted in this, and it costs a whole lot more.
Oh, yeah. And as far as some of the stuff that that we've seen behind the axle, a lot of times they like mounting generators back there. We do have a relocation for the generators. We just moved that back a couple of inches. Batteries tend not to be in our way. Unless it's like a really, really short unit, then even spare tires can stay there.
2,500, I don't know if you talked about it.
As far as we actually had a couple of people ask about those the other day. The kits for the 2500s, they just redesigned, and it makes a lot more room, or it can doesn't take up near as much room as like the big vans do. And I did do some research, and I'm like 98% sure that we could fit it on your unit. If we can't, we can make the accommodations to make it fit.
It's a good birthday gift for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to talk to the wife though.
Got to talk to the accountant, get that check.
If you're interested, while they're here, even if you have a 2500, let them look, because is it 2500 with generator will be different than a generator one with the lithium batteries?
Oh, yeah.
When I got mine, Brian said, hey, before I'm going to say yes, call under there. By the way, thank you, it's raining. And take pictures of your axle so you can see. So let him take the pictures. I'm really. But I think say yes or no, because they've done 1,000. But as soon as I took the picture, he goes, we got room.
Yeah.
I have room, I can move.
There's really only 2 or 3 key things that we look at to be able to tell whether or not there's room. And from there, it's like, I can tell within seconds. I mean, I have probably 400 pictures of sprinters all over the country on my phone that, can I fit on there? No problem. Can I fit on there? Ooh. The biggest thing that I've seen an issue with is landing jacks. And they don't usually put them on the vans. Usually they put those on the cab chassis. That's the only thing I've ever had where it's like, absolutely not, it will not go. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
More technical.
Do you have to come here to get it done, or do you have other places in the country?
Well, we are promoting our company, which is local, which is here. Yeah, but like I said, I mean, if it is necessary, VB does have a full list of installers all over the country. But
these guys have done 10 times.
Yeah, they've done.
we're here. We can do it. We can take care of it. Absolutely, no problem. Any other technical? Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to second everything you said. We had ours done last year, and it makes so much sense. It's a difference between things working independently and things that are unified.
Yeah.
And it's smooth. you don't, it's just more stable.
Yeah.
Driving in wind or anything, going around corners, but it is night and day in the back.
I mean, I personally, I can't find any reason to say no, but I'm not the one that has to write the checks. I know that's the tough one. But I mean, I'm the crazy guy that I got a Ford Element that has, or a Honda Element that has a 3-inch lift on it. I got a big orange Taco over there that's got a 3-inch lift on it. I lift everything.
So, from what I understood though, you're lifting the rear but not the front?
It's not technically a lift. What it does is it brings it back to where Mercedes says it's supposed to be.
So this won't lift the vehicle itself? Yeah.
No.
That's the reason I first thought of it, because I saw these Agiles and it looked like a race car. I'm like, I don't want a race car, I want it.
Now saying that, I mean, if there is a need for a lift, there's always options. But the VB system by itself is not a lift. Yes, sir.
My question, I have the mid-size, the 22-footer, and it has a generator in the back. Is there room for your system on the, not the shorty, but the next size up that has the generator in the back underneath it? Is there room for all your hardware?
I can take a look at it and tell you in about 30 seconds.
Okay.
I choose not to say right now because I haven't seen it, but let me take a look at it. We can definitely find out.
So we use our RV, our Sprinter van, about 140 nights a year, so we're in it a lot, and we use it. And so our challenge was really the Sprinter van basic suspension didn't provide any suspension. As an example, if you're pulling out of a Walmart, it would rock 3 or 4 times. It was almost embarrassing. And also when you're driving up the highway, if you go by a truck, it'll blow you sideways. And it was legitimately dangerous, in my opinion. I think what threw me over the edge of why I wanted this was really 2 reasons. One is I was transporting my daughter-in-law and 6-month-old grandson to Fort Leavenworth, and she never complained. She's an RN, isn't a person who complains. And she said, hey, Carl, I'm catching air back here. And of course, I've never ridden the back of the RV, so I didn't know that. And you catch air, and that's wrong in a luxury RV. So that, and then the last step is my wife wears hearing aids, and we couldn't talk. It was loud and rattled because the suspension, we found out later from Scott, is our suspension was so overloaded, it was flat, so I had no real suspension in the back. And so after you put the VB air ride system in through Utility, all of a sudden we could not just talk across, but we could talk from the back of the RV to the front. And for our world, that's significant because now we can talk. It's so quiet. It is legitimately, they say whisper quiet, and that's true. It's whisper quiet. I had the VB air ride system installed. I have a 2x4, so I have the dually. They have for each package, I have the dually, I have the extended van. So it's the entire VP air ride system does a couple things. Number one, the most important thing Scott told me was it keeps the van at exactly 19.3 inches from the chassis. And that's Mercedes-Benz spec. Here's why it's important. So when Scott first measured my front wheel well to top to ground and back, my front wheel well was 34 inches, and that's appropriate. My back was 31. Never knew it, didn't really look at it before, but my back was 3 inches lower. And then we look at the springs, and the springs are fully loaded. That's why it was 3 inches lower. Well, with the VB air ride system, it keeps you consistently at that 19.3 inches. So as an example, when we left the factory, we were driving on the road, and I intentionally tried to hit every single bump I could find, having my wife sit in the back. And we were going on the road, and all of a sudden she said, I felt the bump. I said, we just went over the railroad track to 25 miles an hour. That wasn't a bump. Those were railroad tracks. She didn't feel any of the bumps. And I also said, hey, Kay, also you are 24 feet behind me and we're talking. And if you have a hearing loss, that's a long way to talk. Before we couldn't even talk across the aisle. So it's really quiet, it's very comfortable, and it's flat. It's really amazing. The last thing I'll tell you is we went onto a highway and said, let's just see what happens if we take the exit. And if you've been in a Sprinter van, you know it really leans a lot, where you're uncomfortable driving at 30 miles an hour. So I took the exit at about 45 miles an hour, with a 25 mile an hour exit, and I didn't lean at all because that VB system, because it's measuring 19.3 inches from the ground, it adjusts to keep you at the exact right height. So we felt nothing. It almost feels almost like a sports car in some ways. It just feels tighter. And of course, nothing rattles in the back, which is pretty amazing. The day before, Brian, the salesperson, said, can you be here at 6 a.m.? We were. They were waiting for us. You drive into the factory. It took about 7 hours total. They've got a very nice lounge, by the way, great internet. So we sat there, and Scott had me come down a couple times to see different things, like where the springs were, what was going on. I'll tell you what really surprised me is I didn't know my inside tire was actually flat. Didn't even know it. He goes, hey, your tires are flat. So it was a good catch for me. Didn't even know it. So my suspension didn't give me any information about it. It took 7 hours. We were physically leaving at 1 o'clock. And that included a couple of times I wanted to get some pictures to show my friends the system, but 7 hours.